Hello, my spider friends. We're live and we are testing out some new equipment, which is why this isn't a spider video. I swear the next one I'm going to do will be a tarantula video. However, this one I'm testing out a new camera and a new light. Observe. No, we're going to turn that down. Oh, that's a blue one. Did we try the blue one? The tests? Did we try the blue one? Basically, what I have discovered with this new light is that my rosacea looks 10 times worse with the light. So I'm not going to be able to film with the light unless I am plastered in makeup. And I'm only wearing like mascara and lipstick right now. So that's just my phone telling me that I'm doing a live stream. So yes, so this is a request video from one of my biggest supporters who put the request in. You see, he knows I'm a massive, massive, massive film buff. I love movies, like, just movies are my life. You know, like some people, they're just so passionate about music. I am so passionate about movies. And like when I was a kid, we only had like 4 channels. Excuse me, when I was a kid. Like Channel 5 didn't come along until like the late 90s. Um, and we didn't have like cable or anything like that for many years. So like 4 channels. So I would get the telly book. It was a ritual. I'd get the telly book and I'd look through it and I'd mark where every single movie was going to be showing on the telly and decide whether or not I was going to watch it or record it. And I would try and watch every single movie that I could because I was just obsessed with films. So this is why I have seen all the movies. No, not really. I have seen a lot of movies, and my friend has been doing like a challenge poster. It's a top 100 movies poster, and it's like a scratch off. So like when you've watched a movie, you scratch it off, and he's been marking it with like whether or not he likes the movie. And unfortunately, he's gotten to the part where basically all the movies that he's got left to watch are movies that he's been putting off and didn't really want to watch in the first place, and now he's just got a list full of movies he didn't want to watch. So I said like, oh, I could do you a list. I could do you a top 100 movies list, my top 100 movies list. And he obviously seen some of them because I've made him watch them. But yeah, so he said, why don't you do a video? Don't tell me, just do a video and I'll watch that instead, and that'll save me having to have a conversation with you. So, okay, this is what we're doing. By request, I am going to give you my top 100 movies by genre. It's not in any particular order, and there is 2 major exclusions. One is Star Trek, and the other is Star Wars. You see, for me, the Star Trek movies are a companion to the TV show. We're talking the real Star Trek movies, not the Kelvin timeline. That's not Star Trek. No, we're talking like TOS, TNG, DS9, VOI, ENT, and DIS. Sadly, DIS is a thing, and then PIC is coming soon. Oh, I forgot about animated. Yes, I love animated. But yeah, like the movies like Wrath of Khan and Voyage Home and Search for Spock and The Undiscovered Country, which I can never choose. I love Undiscovered Country so much, but I also love Voyage Home so much. Like 4 and 6, it's like a toss up for me as to which ones are my absolute favourites. But like even the bad ones I still kind of like, apart from Star Trek 5, because I only know one person in real life who's ever said that they like Star Trek 5, and that's also his favourite Star Trek movie. But it's got to be someone's, you know. So I'm just counting the Star Trek movies just because I consider them part of the overall Star Trek canon, which includes all the TV shows, and I would have to do my own completely separate Star Trek list because I am a lifelong Trekkie, and we're not doing that today. And then I'm not including Star Wars because I love all of Star Wars. Like, I've seen all of Star Wars, and if I was going to have a Star Wars list, this would have to be a part of it. Caravan of Courage and The Battle for Endor. Oh yeah, I'm hardcore Star Wars. I have seen every single Star Wars thing apart from Rebels, which I am not caught up on yet. But apart from that, apart from like the very latest cartoons, like we're talking like the original Ewok series, Droids, like I have a video like that was given to me from collecting tokens from Dairylea Cheese Triangles of Ewoks and of Droids. I loved those shows. I managed to get a download of like as many as I could because it's just, if it was legal to buy, I would buy it. I promise you, Disney, please don't send the mouse after me. I love Star Wars. I love it so much. So yeah, I've discounted Star Wars because I couldn't just go, oh, I really love Phantom Menace. Oh, I really love Empire. Oh, I love them all. Okay? I love them all. So that's not included in the top 100 because Star Wars as a whole, like an entire canon, it has to be like everything. It has to be Caravan of Courage. It has to be Battle for Endor. It has to be the Star Wars Holiday Special. They all have to be there. So it would be ridiculous to actually let's put Caravan Courage over here in front of Revenge of the Sith. Oh, look, Ewan McGregor's face. Poke out a bit there. Obi-Wan show coming soon. Avengers, you can go back a bit. Right, so, you know, just so you know, they may not be on the list, Star Wars or Star Trek, but I am a massive, 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 massive fan of both of those entities. So they're just not included. They're just not included. It's not like James Bond, where you can take one movie from the franchise and watch that movie on its own without watching any other James Bond movie and still have an enjoyable film-going experience where you've got like a beginning, a middle, and end to a movie and everything makes sense, with the exception of like the Daniel Craig ones where there's like a lot of tie-in and continuity stuff, particularly in Skyfall. So excluding that, and that's not a criticism, I'm just saying like it's a different kind of franchise. Like Marvel movies are a different kind of franchise. You can just watch one movie out of the Marvel franchise. I don't think you can watch one Star Wars movie and it makes sense unless that one Star Wars movie that you're watching is Caravan of Courage, because actually I don't think you could watch that on its own without ever having seen any other Star Wars movie, and things would still probably make sense to you as much as things make sense in that movie. So the only way I could figure of doing this was doing it by genre, and I'm not exactly sure I've got the number right. It should be 100, but I counted it several times and I kept coming up with 99 and 101, and then I was like taking movies off and putting them on and taking them off and putting them on, and I got so confused. So I think it's 100, but there might be one extra or there might be one missing, but let's just say that it's 100. So I had to start with horror because my friend, he's called David. Hi David, you watching this? If you're watching this right now, please text me a big internet thumbsy upsy. Okay, so we're starting with horror because David doesn't like horror movies really. I kind of introduced him to a lot of horror movies and he doesn't like scary films. So these are all the movies that he's going to have to watch. So starting with horror slasher, I have Urban Legend and Urban Legend Final Cut, which is the second one. Now, I like Urban Legend Final Cut more than I like Urban Legend. But I still like Urban Legend, but I think you can't watch the second one without having seen the first one. And with horror, you often get sequels that are better than the original movies, and I think that you need to watch both of them. So these are the first two on the list: Urban Legend, Urban Legend Final Cut, and then Scream. Forget about the sequels, just the first one, Scream. These are three excellent movies, and I highly recommend them to everyone, not just to David. Please feel free to join in. David's going to have to watch all these movies and then give me his opinion on them. Not that I'm really going to care what he thinks, because these are my top 100. I'm joking, David. Okay, so then we go supernatural slasher, and for that, Jason X, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 Dream Warriors. Now, Jason X is the best Friday the 13th movie that there is. It is the best movie that there is in that franchise. I love them all. Jason's my favourite. Jason, you're my boy. You're my boy. But Jason X is, one, hilarious, and two, like, it's horrifying in a way that's entertaining and fun. Like, the kills are all ridiculously exaggerated, over the top, so it's a lot of fun to watch. And of course, Nightmare and Nightmare 3 tie together. They're like two halves of the same story, so they have to be together. And yes, so then we have horror, ghost, and I have two for this one: The Shining, which is Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece in my humble opinion, and then 13 Ghosts, the 1990s version. That might be controversial. I know some people really like the Vincent Price version, or the Vincent Price Scooby-Doo version, but I really like the one with Tony Shalhoub and Matthew Lillard and Shannon Elizabeth. I really like that movie. I like the canon, I like the lore, I like the way that they did the 13 Ghosts. I like Beth Williams, and I like all the backstory to the ghosts. Like, it's a film I really, really enjoy, so I am happy to have that on my top 100. Then we have Monster horror movie, and for that, The Mist by Frank Darabont. An adaptation of the Stephen King novella from Skeleton Crew. It's excellent. It's just an excellent, excellent horror movie. I can't really fault it. I did start watching the Netflix series, and then I stopped because I was like, oh, but I think I want to go back to it at some point. So we'll see about that. There was another monster movie on the list, which was Candyman, and then I cut it for like list length, but Candyman is excellent. So if it ends up being that I was one short, include Candyman on the list, because I sat down to watch it for the first time, God, I must have been 25, 26, so quite late watching this. And I sat down and I was like, this is not going to be scary. This is not going to be scary. This is Tony Todd. This is lovely. Tony Todd, this is Worf's brother. This is Death from the Final Destination movies. This is older Jake Sisko. Tony Todd. It was terrifying. I can't even tell you what it was about the movie that was so scary, but it was. And I was watching it in the day. And I was sat there on my bed, like, retracting further into the duvet, like grabbing onto one of my many stuffed animals, going like, oh my goodness, terrifying. And I can't even tell you why it was so scary, but yes, Candyman was very, very scary. Then we're still in horror. For Killer Shark horror movies, Jaws, obviously, because Jaws is pretty much my favourite movie of all time. And a more recent one, The Meg, which is actually also now in my top 10. And it's not very often my top 10 movies change around a lot, but when I watched The Meg, I was like, this is amazing. Like, I'm a huge, huge fan of shark movies and crocodile movies, and so good. I really enjoyed it. In fact, I watched it and then I immediately watched it again, and then I immediately watched it again. I watched it like 3 times on the bounce. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I'm not sure that anyone else will enjoy it quite as much as I did, but I really enjoyed that movie. So like, speaking of killer crocodiles, those 2 on the list for killer crocodile movies: Lake Placid and Rogue. Now, Lake Placid, I love Lake Placid. It's comedy, it's horror, it's got a giant feck-off crocodile in it that's absolutely huge. It's got Betty White calling Brendan Gleeson a cocksucker. What more can you want from a movie? It's just excellent, and it's my favourite. Now, the sequels to the Lake Placid movie, the first sequel is terrible, but all the other sequels are actually enjoyable in a sort of bad to their good way. And they introduce a character called Reba, who kind of becomes the main character in the spin-off sequel ones, including Lake Placid versus Anaconda. I have seen all the Anaconda movies and all the Lake Placid movies. So yeah, and my favourite one is the one where Reba is also joined by Robert Englund, of Freddy Krueger fame. And also, well, you know, I liked the Versus one, and then there was an Anaconda one with David Hasselhoff in it, which was like, that was really good. So yeah. I like trashy monster movies. What can I say? Rogue, on the other hand, is an Australian movie, which is very good. I really liked it. There was 2 Australian crocodile movies came out at the same time, Blackwater and Rogue. And Blackwater is terrible. Terrible. It is 50% shots of crocodiles at a zoo and mangroves, and then 50% an actual movie. But it is very boring and very slow and not at all entertaining, which is a big crime. I'm willing to forgive a lot of a movie if it's entertaining. Like, well, we'll get to them. We'll get to the so bad it's good section. For killer animals, brackets, other, Piranha 3D. I love Piranha 3D. It's so good. It knows what it is. It knows it's a cheesy horror movie, and it has fun with it, and the horrific bits are horrific and the funny bits are funny. And it's just a movie I get a lot of pleasure from, and the fact that Richard Dreyfuss is in it at the start of the movie doing a great big Jaws reference is also pretty good. So horror comedy, which is, I have 2 separate. I have comedy horror and horror comedy. Horror comedy, it's like, it's horror with comedic bits, really, and it could have put it under slasher, but Black Christmas. I love Black Christmas. It's got the Black Canary in it. What's her name? I can't remember the actress's name. Who plays Laurel in Arrow, right? She's in it. Michelle Trachtenberg is in it, who was like Dawn in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and she was Harriet the Spy. There are other people in it as well. I don't want to, like, I really like Black Christmas. This is the remake Black Christmas as well, not the 1970s one. So yeah, I think a few people could end up disagreeing with my top 100 list, but I don't care, it's my list. This was horror other. I talked about it the other night in the Stephen King video, Thinner. I know, but it's my list, it's my top 100. Thinner. I love Thinner. Okay. Found footage. I know that this is controversial, but horror is a big, big part of things what I enjoy, and so there was going to be a lot of horror movies in my top 100, and when I thought about found footage, immediately the Blair Witch Project, because it's the Blair Witch Project. It was iconic. I went to see that with some school friends, one of whom is actually a big YouTuber now, but I won't say who it is. And we went to see that movie, and when we came out, we were all because it was such an experience being there, and like we all knew it was fake. We all knew that it wasn't real, but we let our with the girl who played Deborah in Dexter, in English. So, if you're a Philistine, watch Quarantine, and if you want to watch the original movie, watch Wreck, because it's excellent. Prize for me that I did enjoy it, because it was found footage, the entire paranormal vampires. Now, this will mainly affect David, because he hates vampires, and he's hardly seen any vampire movies, but recently, we got into, there's a movie called What We Do in the Shadows, which is by Jerome Clement from Flight of the Conchords and Taika Waititi, who is the director for Thor Ragnarok. And it's a really funny movie, and it's about vampires, and they did a TV show with Matt Berry and I want to say Novak, I can never remember his last name, Face Jacker. The TV series was really, really good. And then in one episode, they had a load of people in who'd played vampires in movies, but playing themselves as vampires. So they had Paul Rubin, aka Pee Wee Herman, who played a vampire in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, like the one with Kirsty Swanson in it. And he was dressed like that character, but they all called him Paul. And then they had Evan Rachel Wood playing her character from True Blood, but they were calling her Evan. Then they had Tilda Swinton, love Tilda Swinton, dressed as her character from Only Lovers Left Alive, which is the one with Tom Hiddleston where he's naked. So I've seen that movie a couple of times. But again, they called her Tilda, and then they had Wesley Snipes on webcam. It was brilliant. But I was and Danny Trejo. So I was having to explain to David when we watched this particular episode who some of the people were and what vampire things they'd been in, because he's not seen everything. So I am including vampire movies on the list, and if he's going to do the top 100, he's going to have to watch them. So Interview with a Vampire, pretty homoerotic. Lots of pretty men in it though, so it's a pretty good movie. I enjoy the book immensely, and I enjoy the movie, and I wouldn't mind if they remade it, because maybe they could do some of the more stuff that they'll cut out from the book. But I would still probably enjoy it. Dracula, I told myself I could only pick one Dracula movie for the top 100, so I picked Dracula 1931, starring Bela Lugosi, because, as Bela Lugosi said once in Edward, fuck Boris Karloff, The Lost Boys is essential watching. It is also possibly the most homoerotic movie ever made. It's basically about Kiefer Sutherland and Jason Patrick as vampires wanting to bone each other, but then there's like a girl in the way that they're sort of both boning by proxy. Joel Schumacher made it. It's not surprising how gay it is. And then Dusk Till Dawn, which Quentin Tarantino wrote it. And I'm a Tarantino fan. Robert Rodriguez directed it. I've never met a Rodriguez film I didn't like. So it's a pretty great movie, and you're just going to have to suck it up and watch it, David. You asked for this. Okay. Romance. Let's move on from horror to romance. Obviously, Titanic. Titanic's one of those movies where people go, Titanic. Every time it's on the telly, I end up watching it all the way through, every single time. Like, if I'm flicking through the channels, it's like, oh, Titanic. Oh, Titanic. Oh, Leonardo DiCaprio in 1997. Oh, at its peak Leoness. Oh, I actually went to see that movie at the cinema 5 times. That record was held from 1997 until 2012 when Avengers came out, and I went to see that a lot more. Moving on. A romance dance movie is another subgenre, and for that I have 2. Dirty Dancing, Obs, and Strictly Ballroom. A Strictly Ballroom is basically the Australian version of Dirty Dancing, but not quite as pervy because the girl in it isn't supposed to be 16. But yeah, if you haven't seen Strictly Ballroom and you like dance movies and you want a bit of like romance with some mad Australian, very good movie, and I really love Strictly Ballroom. I was a dance kid, so I love pretty much all dance movies, even the bad ones. Then we've got your typical rom-com type romances, and it was very hard. Very hard choosing just three. The fact that I allowed myself three was probably a bit overindulgent. But my top three: Pretty Woman, because Julia was our queen in that movie alone. Julia was our queen. We all wanted to be Julia. While You Were Sleeping, it's a movie that's forgotten about, but I think it's probably my favourite Sandra Bullock movie. And it stars Bill Pullman, Peter Gallagher. It's a really good movie, and I really like it. And then You've Got Mail. Now, some people would disagree with me massively. If you're going to have like a Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks movie, most people would assume you'd choose Sleepless in Seattle. But no, I like You've Got Mail. I like it. I like that it's cheesy. I like that it's about two people emailing each other. And it was a different time. And it's very much of its time. It's like this little frozen pocket of what the world was like at that particular time, and has never been like it since and never will be again. So I like it. Moving on. Thrillers. Misery and Heathers. I've spoken of my love for Misery many times. Heathers is... This is the problem with organising things by genre as well, because I was tempted to put it. Heathers was the first movie I ever bought where I was not legally old enough to buy it, but I bought it anyway. It was a 15 certificate video, and I was not 15 when I bought it. But yeah, it's one of my like all-time favourite movies. I just love Heathers so much. Documentaries. I've got two on the list for documentaries. Blackfish, the documentary about SeaWorld, and Grizzly Man, which is Werner Herzog's movie about Timothy Creswell, who was a guy who was like an amateur bear enthusiast, and he was eaten by bears. But it's a really good documentary. See, the guy filmed everything, so Werner took all this footage and he put it together. Werner Herzog's the guy who did the March of the Penguins movie, and also he played Shrimpy Pibbles in Rick and Morty, so... Foreign language. My favourite Spanish language movie that I didn't want to file it under horror. I wanted specifically to choose a Spanish language movie to represent my favourite all-time Spanish language movie, and that is Cronos by Guillermo del Toro. Now, this movie gave me nightmares for years. For years. And it wasn't until walking through Tesco that I saw this picture on a DVD box set in like on the DVD shelves in Tesco, and I was like, oh my god, it's that movie! I'd never known what the movie was called. I'd seen it once when I was a kid, and I was terrified. And then, like, obviously I had to buy the box set and immediately watch it again, and when I watched it again, oh my god, it's so scary. It's such a scary movie. But yes, Cronos. Oh, Guillermo del Toro does excellent movies, but I mean, I do love his other movies. I do love Pan's Labyrinth and Devil's Backbone and Hellboy and Hellboy 2 and Mama, and I recently saw Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and that was very, very good. But yes, Kronos with a K. I also had to choose a foreign language movie for French and for Japanese, because I've seen a fair few French movies, seen a fair few Japanese movies, and again, these could be filed under other subgenres, but I wanted to have some foreign language movies, because my poor David had to watch some French movies and he'd never seen a French movie before, and he was like, how different can they be? And I was like, this is very clear that you've never seen a French movie before. So this is actually a movie I really like. I'm not sure how I know that there's a very mixed reaction to this movie. The movie's called Raw, and it's about a girl who's going to veterinary school, and she slowly craves flesh. It's very good. It is very good. It's still French. It's still very French. Um, and I mean that in in the French way that like every single person in the movie is smoking all the time. So whenever I watch a French movie, I get the craving. Like, I don't smoke anymore. I vape now. But whenever I watch a French movie, I get the cigarette craving, because I'm just watching all these people smoke all the way through the movies. So one movie, Battle Royale. Battle Royale was the first Japanese movie I ever saw, and it actually physically changed who I was as a person after seeing that, because I was a teenager when I saw it, and it's about, now, stop me if this sounds familiar. In a dystopian future, the government is cracking down on unruly people. They decide to institute an annual game. This game involves taking a bunch of students, school students, young people, to an isolated island where they are given a small amount of supplies and very little prep time, and they are told they have a limited amount of time to kill each other. Last man standing wins, and they're given like a kind of reward if they do win, and all the rest of the country watch this on big screens, and people make bets, and it's sort of like, it's entertainment, and it's controversial, but it's entertainment at the same time. Is this sounding familiar at all? Yes, this is Battle Royale. This is Battle Royale that came out many, 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 many years before the Hunger Games, I'm afraid. The Hunger Games is pretty much a note-for-note, gender-reversed copy of Battle Royale, because it's a girl instead of a guy who's the main character, who's protecting someone that they hold a flame for. It's the same movie, but Battle Royale's better. Like, they wanted Mockingbird and all of these ones to be like a teen-friendly movie. Battle Royale is not a teen-friendly movie. And when I watched this, I was still in school, and I remember thinking, like, if this happened to my class, I would not survive. I would be one of the first people to be killed, because none of these people who I go to school with would, like, want to save me over them. So yeah, I was like a bit traumatized by that movie for quite a while. Yeah, but that's my favourite Japanese language movie. I have many other Japanese language movies that I really, really love. But if I was only going to choose a couple for the top 100 to cover all the genres, it had to be Battle Royale. There is a sequel. It's fine. It's not as good, but it's fine. It's fine. Moving on. Teen movies. By the way, David, I am going to send you the full list. Teen movies. The Breakfast Club. Iconic. 10 Things I Hate About You. Iconic. Clueless. I mean, do I need to say it? It's iconic. The Craft, which, you know, that was an accident. I just wanted to be Fairuza Balk so much in The Craft. She was so beautiful and just had this like pale, gothic, witchy princess thing going on. Loved that movie. And Romy and Michelle's High School Reunion, which is a comedy, and I mean, I don't know how you can, I'd class it as a teen. It's a teen movie. It's a good movie. I love that movie. It's a great movie. It's my top 100. I don't care what you think. Comedy. This is one of my top 10 films of all time. To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. The late, great Patrick Swayze stars alongside Wesley Snipes and John Leguizamo, playing three drag queens that are travelling across the country in a car. I know that Priscilla, Queen of the Desert is the more famous one, but To Wong Fu is better. It just is. It just is. Watch To Wong Fu. It's the greatest movie. Also, RuPaul's in it. You know, because it's a drag queen movie, why wouldn't you have RuPaul in it? Pitch Perfect is a more recent one that's, I really love it. I like the sequels as well, but Pitch Perfect is the best, and I love it. I love every cheesy moment of it. Now, I wasn't sure what to file these under, so comedy horror. I have two, and I know David's going to hate me for one of these, but he's already seen it, so he doesn't have to watch it. So stop complaining, David. Dracula Dead and Loving It. And What We Do in the Shadows, which I already mentioned. So Dracula Dead and Loving It is flippin' hilarious, particularly if you've seen the vampire movies that it's parodying. And Peter MacNicol plays what is, in my opinion, the greatest Renfield that's ever been on screen. Like, no, I do like the guy who's in Bram Stoker's Dracula, likes Renfield, and he's got the plate, and he's like, hello, offer you an hors d'oeuvre, doctor, or a canapé. But it cracks me up just thinking about it. Peter MacNicol sat eating insects off the table in Dracula Dead and Loving It, and he's got these little cricket legs sticking out of his mouth. Oh dear. Oh dearie, 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 dearie me. Yeah, what can I say? Like, there are some things that just tickle me. And then oh god, yeah. What We Do in the Shadows, I already spoke about, but I'll just recap. It's Taika Waititi, Jermaine Clement. It's a sort of mockumentary, and I love mockumentaries. It's really good. I highly recommend it. I don't want to give too much away. Just watch it and then go watch the series. Actually, I think they're all on iPlayer right now, so just go watch it on iPlayer. But yeah, they're very good. Sci-fi. This is another big one. This is, again, why I didn't really include Star Wars or Star Trek, because, like, sci-fi is another one of my things, along with horror. So, Logan's Run, pretty high at the top of the list. I really, really love Logan's Run. When I was a kid, it used to upset me a lot, because there's a robot in it, and I'm not a fan of robots, especially the ones that try to kill you, and there's a very scary one in it, but I'm trying to deal with it. I'm trying to deal with the robot thing. Like, the Black Hole is a favourite, and that also has a terrifying robot. It's got blender hands. That's what I call him. I think his name is it Sebastian? But I just call him Blender Hands because he has blender hands, and he's utterly terrifying. So that slightly ruins my enjoyment of the Black Hole whenever I watch it. But yeah, that's another Disney live action movie, actually. 2010, the year we made contact. It's better than 2001. 2001 is boring. 2010 is very exciting. it's got Sheriff Brody in it, and it's got Helen Mirren in it, Dame Helen Mirren, who's Russian in this. She was Russian a lot in her younger years. But yeah, no, I love 2010. That's definitely my favourite. I really, really wish they'd get around to making 2073 and then 3001. That'd be cool. Arthur C. Clarke is one of my favourite sci-fi writers of all time. So, another one, Moon. It stars Sam Rockwell, who I will watch in anything because he's just an excellent, excellent actor. And I'm not saying any more apart from the fact that it was directed by Duncan Jones, who is David Bowie's son, and who also directed the World of Warcraft movie, which was actually a pretty decent movie. Sunshine. Oh, I love Danny Boyle movies, and I love Sunshine. It's got Cillian Murphy in it, who's just so beautiful. And also Chris Evans, who's also very attractive. Very, very attractive. Moving on. Starship Troopers. That's actually in my top 5 favourite movies of all time. Starship Troopers. I love Starship Troopers. Paul Verhoeven is the director. He directed Robocop, but he also directed Showgirls. And I really enjoy his movies. Now, I've got 2 here. Predator and The Predator. Predators is the one that was directed by Robert Rodriguez, and The Predator is the recent one. And I recently watched it, and I loved it. I was shocked. I did not think I was going to like it, but I loved it. If you've not seen it yet, you're a fan of the Predator movies, go watch it. It is a joy. It is a pure, pure moment of joy to watch. So yes, I highly recommend them. Like sci-fi horror-y movies, you know, Alien and Aliens. I really did actually also want to put on Alien 3 because I love Alien 3. It has Charles Dance in it. But I limited myself because, you know, we've not got a long time. You're gonna have a year to watch these 100 movies, and Aliens I think fairly represents the franchise as a whole. It's the better part of it. So adding to that, The Thing and The Thing brackets 2011. Now, again, controversy because many people do not like The Thing brackets 2011 because it's got some CG in it. But it also has a lot of practical effects in it, and they just sort of polished it up with some CG, and they did actually do a hell of a lot with practical effects and monsters and stuff. So I really like it, and I really like the fact that you could watch them like, and they would directly lead into one another. So I'm not sure if Mr. David has actually seen the Thing movies. So if he hasn't, you have to watch them as The Thing, brackets 2011, then The Thing, to give an opinion as to whether or not they do really well meshing together, like timeline wise. And this is a fun little sound to make. I shall stop that now. Sci-fi comedy is also a thing, and for that, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Have you not seen them? Like, they're awesome. I'm really, really pumped for Bill and Ted 3. They've been talking about doing it for so long. So long. But if they don't have William Sadler in it, it's going to be a crime against humanity. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. Okay? I know George Carlin is no longer with us, but it needs to have William Sadler in it. That's just the way it is. Okay? Now, superhero movies. Marvel, DC, other. Was the only way I could do that. I couldn't just pick one. So, Marvel, Avengers Assemble, Iron Man, and Blade. Shocking. Yeah, yeah. Like I do love the entire MCU. We're not going to get into that rant that was starting to form inside my head about the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, but yeah. So I generally enjoy the Marvel films. The DC films are a bit more hit and miss for me, but yes, Blade is a Marvel title. Apparently, he might be coming to the MCU, but I really, really, really liked the entire Blade trilogy. And the first one is the best. The second one was directed by Guillermo del Toro, so I really love it. Plus, it has Danny John-Jules in it from Red Dwarf. So, you know, it's always with. Also, Luke Goss. Luke Goss from Bros. He's so attractive in that movie. He's also really attractive in Hellboy 2, which is another Guillermo del Toro movie, but we're going to be going off on a tangent here. For DC, I only picked one, and it was very hard because there are other DC titles that I do really enjoy, but Batman 1989, that was the redefining of Batman, because Batman had been campy for so long. Not that I stopped loving campy Adam West Batman, but this was like the reinvention of Batman. So, and Jack Nicholson was just excellent in it, and he's like my second favourite Joker after Mark Hamill. Really enjoy that movie. And then for other, I have Red Sonja. If you're not familiar with Red Sonja, it was supposed to be a Conan tie-in movie because the comic books are actually connected, the Red Sonja and the Conan comics. And if you're going to read any Red Sonja comics, I highly recommend the Gail Simone run on it, because she's just an excellent writer. But Red Sonja the movie is Bridget Nielsen and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's now playing a character called Kalidor, which is as close to Conan as they were legally allowed to have. And if you watch the trailer, it's deceptive as to how much Arnold Schwarzenegger's in the movie, because he's not in it that much. But I don't know what it is about it. Like, I will admit that it is cheesy, but I love everything about it. I love the villain in it. I love Red Sonja. I wanted to be her so much. Like, I wanted to be that fierce warrior with the sword and the hair and the I love Red Sonja. They keep talking about wanting to do a remake, but I don't know if it's ever going to happen. It's a bit hard because, like, all of the comics she's practically naked. So we will see about that. Musicals. La 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 la, musicals. This is why I had to do it by genre, because if I was just going to do, like, favourite movies, then I'd still be on horror. Like, I'd be like, oh, I forgot about this genre and this genre. This is why I made myself, like, do it like this. So I picked 5 movies for musicals, which I thought, is that a lot? I've got one in, like, romance regular. And I've got 5 musicals, so, you know. But a lot of these things you can cross sub-genres. You know, I'd love to be able to do that. Please make iTunes so that I can do that, please. So the 5 musicals that I picked to put on my list of my top 100 movies of all time were Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, starring Howard Keel, who is beautiful and handsome and gorgeous and just the most wonderful singer. I love Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. I don't love it quite as much as Calamity Jane, which also stars Howard Keel, but Doris Day, may she rest in peace. We've only just lost her. I do have her autograph though. I love Doris Day so much, and Calamity Jane was my favourite Doris Day movie. This is sort of a musical, sort of not. Velvet Goldmine. This is a movie about a pop star who's a little bit like David Bowie and a rock star who's a little bit like Iggy Pop, played by Jonathan Rhys-Meyers and Ewan McGregor, and then Christian Bale plays like a third character, and they all have sex with each other. in the glam rock 70s. That's as much as really that you need to know to sell you on this movie. But sex. Also, Repo the Genetic Opera, which if you haven't seen is amazing. I love it so much. Repo, oh, so good. And Grease 2. Not Grease. Grease 2. Controversial opinion time. Grease 2 is better than Grease. I love it. All the songs are better. Way better. I mean, like, Beauty School Dropout is sort of listing, but I Want a Cool Rider, oh, it's just so rock and roll and hardcore. Because you see, the thing is, right, in Grease, our main character was like Sandy, who's like the preppy girl. And in Grease 2, our main character is played by Michelle Pfeiffer, who's like this sort of hard as nails, smoking biker chick. And oh, I know people will come for me for saying that Grease 2 is better than Grease, but it's true. I'm sorry, I'm not sorry. Now, as I said, I was a dance kid, and I really liked dance movies, and some people class this as a musical, but it's not. It's a dance movie, and that is Hairspray. The original Hairspray by John Waters, not the musical Hairspray, which I also love, and I had to debate whether or not to include it on the list of the top 100 overall movies, because I really wanted to. I also really, really wanted to include Sweeney Todd. But there was only so much room, and I could have my own top 100 musicals list on its own, and there had to be room for some things and not for others. Action movies. Action movies. Die Hard with a Vengeance. Not Die Hard. Not Die Hard 2. Die Hard with a Vengeance. That's my favourite of the whole Die Hard franchise. It's so good. It's so good. In a very cheesy, like, way it sort of knows what it is. And I only just recently saw the alternate ending for that, and I was like, oh God, why wasn't this the real ending? It just made the movie even better, but the ending's fine. The ending's fine. Kill Bill. I class it as one movie. It's two parts of one movie, so both of them. This is how hard it was to do this just with 100 movies. You have no idea. You have no idea how many movies that I have and I have seen. So yeah, Kill Bill as one entity. One. Jurassic Park, which is my second favourite movie of all time, just underneath Jaws. I love Jurassic Park. I love it so much, and I really hope that one day there's a remake. Now that's going to sound crazy, asking for a remake of one of my favourite movies of all time, but like Jurassic World, that like those movies have been fun, but it's not the same. It's just not the same caliber of movie. Like, there was no point in Jurassic World where I really believed any of those dinosaurs were there, but in Jurassic Park, they've got a real gigantic foot. They've got the raptors on wires in the kitchen. Like, you've got the raptor coming through the bush and doing that. Obviously, you know, like, there's some bits where it's clear that they're using, like, models and stuff, but it was so CGI and polished in Jurassic World, you couldn't believe it. But you definitely could in Jurassic Park, and it was that belief that made it absolutely terrifying. The bit where the Velociraptor comes out, oh, my cousin had nightmares for years, couldn't be in a room with a wardrobe. Some velociraptors. Like, to this day, when I look at a building I've not been in before, I think about how safe it would be in, one, case of zombies, and two, case of velociraptors. Those are the two things I worry about the most. Now, I did mention I'm a big Tarantino fan, and my favourite Tarantino movie is Death Proof. That might be controversial. A lot of people dislike Death Proof. I can't even buy Death Proof on iTunes. It's so disliked by other people who are Philistines, because Death Proof is my favourite of all his movies. Like Jackie Brown, second, then Kill Bill. But yeah, Death Proof. I love Death Proof. Death Proof's certainly better than both Django Unchained and the mess that was The Hateful Eight. Don't get me started on that Netflix like re-release of The Hateful Eight with the extra footage in it. No. Death Proof. I love Death Proof. And then, again, one of my top 10 movies of all time, G.I. Jane. G.I. Jane is a Demi Moore movie in which she plays a Marine, and it's very, 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 very good, and you should watch the movie. I've had boys tell me that they don't want to watch the movie because it's a chick flick. It is not a chick flick. It is an action movie in which the main star happens to be a woman. That does not automatically make it a chick flick. Okay? Would you call Terminator a chick flick because Linda Hamilton is a woman? No. G.I. Jane is not a chick flick. Okay? Thank you. Moving on. Now, I did mention James Bond. I picked 3 James Bond movies for my top 100 movies of all time. GoldenEye, License to Kill, and Spectre. Timothy Dalton's my favourite Bond. Timothy Dalton was the rogue Bond that the world was not ready for, that Daniel Craig later became. But yeah, License to Kill, GoldenEye, Spectre. The best 3 James Bond movies, in my humble opinion. Now I move on to my favourite parody movie of all time. I had to include that. Robin Hood, Men in Tights. They're men, manly men. They roam around the forest looking for fights. I don't want to get too into it because it just cracks me up thinking about this movie. It's certainly my favourite Mel Brooks movie, but Robin Hood, Men in Tights, love it. If you haven't seen Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, you may have missed out on some of the jokes. Just saying, for someone who may have mentioned that they don't like Robin Hood, Men in Tights. Kids, live action. Hocus Pocus, the greatest Halloween movie of all time. I think we're all in agreement there. Why is there not a soundtrack release for Bette Midler singing I Put a Spell on You? I don't know why this is, but can we please rectify this? Please? Like, I need this in my life. And Blackbeard's Ghost. Peter Ustinov. Just an excellent movie. I love Blackbeard's Ghost. That's pretty much what started my pirate obsession, was Blackbeard's Ghost. If you've not seen it, it's incredibly funny. It's an old Disney live action movie though, so you know, animated, it's mostly Disney that I've listed, but I did list one not Disney, which was the Lego Movie. I love the Lego Movie. It reignited a love of Lego for me. I never had Lego when I was a kid. I only got it as an adult, so it really was quite inspiring, being assured that it was okay to play with Lego still as an adult, that it is for everyone. It isn't just for kids. Of course, Will Ferrell took it too far, but that's just another issue. Now, I had to choose some other animated movies, and they are all Disney ones. My top four, actually, my top four Disney movies, animated. Wreck-It Ralph. I've got an itchy leg. Wreck-It Ralph, Beauty and the Beast, The Jungle Book, and Moana. I love Moana. I love it so much. I start crying every time I watch it because it makes me so happy. And I love Wreck-It Ralph so much. Like, Vanellope is my princess. She is definitely my favourite Disney princess. No, I can't say that. That's just too controversial. I can't even begin to think about who my favourite Disney princess is. Because that would be too hard. But I do love Vanellope very much. Very much. Because if we're counting all the Disney princesses, I've got to include Shuri from Black Panther, and I do love her. I do love her very much. Yeah. Jungle Book, I love Jungle Book so much. I've got like 8 Baloo's like plushies of varying sizes and styles. And Beauty and the Beast, obviously it's a classic. I think when if you're like sort of my age, you either identified with Belle, Ariel, or Jasmine, and I identified with Belle because I was a bookish child, and it was a brunette. So, you know. I do have one animated adult movie though. Watership Down. I love Watership Down. It's not for kids really, but I'm really looking forward to showing it to my children, like my nieces and nephews, and watching them be traumatized. I'm really looking forward to that actually. Now, we talked earlier about horror comedy, and we talked about comedy with horror elements. These two are comedy / horror, as in they're equal parts comedy and equal parts horror. And that is Beetlejuice and Severance. Now, everyone loves Beetlejuice. Do I really need to explain Beetlejuice? Severance is a British movie. It stars Tim McInnerny. And other people as well. Like, there's one American in it, obviously, to try and make it sell overseas. But Danny Dye is in it. It's very funny and also horrible. And yeah, if you've not seen it, Severance. It's very good. We're nearly at the end of the list now. Don't worry, we're nearly done. So drama. I only picked 2 movies for drama, and horror had like 7 subsections. Jackie Brown, which I love so much. It's just an excellent movie. Pam Grier is iconic in Jackie Brown, and Gone with the Wind. It's a classic. Like, every time I watch it, I am always blown away by it. It's just, if you've never seen Gone with the Wind, then you are missing something in your life. I love everything about Gone with the Wind. I'm such a Gone with the Wind fangirl. Like, I've read all of the unofficial sequels, and they're all really terrible, but I still read them hoping one of them will be good. Fantasy. Obviously, Fellowship of the Ring. I mean, I do like the Two Towers. It's got all the Gommel? Who the heck is Gommel? Gollum. It's got all the Gollum bits in it, and Andy Serkis is excellent. But I think when I remember Two Towers, I'm just remembering Gollum and not the rest of the movie, whereas Fellowship, I remember all of it. And it's like it's the best individual of the 3, I believe. Like, I went to see it like 3 times. I went to see Towers twice, and 4 for Return of the King. But this was back in the day when I did smoke, and you were allowed to smoke at the cinema. Not in the cinema itself, but you were allowed to go to the bar area and like have a Like, so I had to go see it a few times because these movies are like 3 hours long, and I needed a cigarette break. I'm just going to have a little sip of Fanta. Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, even though it's Monkey Island, I still love it. Labyrinth, David Bowie, iconic. The Crow. They keep talking about remaking that as well, and I don't know if it's ever going to happen. It might. I'm not really bothered. Like, I love The Crow. It's like in my top 10 movies of all time. It's they'll never beat Brandon Lee's performance or how poignant it was. So no matter what they do, it's not going to be better, and I don't think The Crow will be forgotten. And when I was coming up, when I was a teenager, everybody dressed like The Crow, who was like a goth, like, and I was a goth. So, like, you know, we all had the white face makeup and the black lipstick and the black eyes, and we all did it. And we all thought it was so cool. And to be fair, it was. We were so cool. But yeah, it's a really, 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 really excellent movie. I don't want to spoil it, so if you've not seen it, just go watch it. Mystery. Mystery was another subgenre, and I picked two. Um, the first one is Clue, starring Tim Curry, and Clue is excellent. It's based on the board game Cluedo, or Clue as it is in America, but it's Cluedo here. It's very funny, but it's like a murder mystery, and I love murder mysteries. And then I classed it as a mystery because I really wasn't sure what else to put it in. I didn't want to just go thriller. The Silence of the Lambs. It's a piece of cinematic greatness, and it's a mystery. So, sorry, I thought my cat was breaking into the front room. Now, the next two categories, we're almost done now. Right, so one, British movies. Like, you could class them as other things as well, but I classed them as British movies because I was like thinking of genres, and I was thinking like, what is my favourite from each of these genres? Like my favorite, not like my top 10. Like I said, like I could do an entire top 100 on horror films, and I wouldn't even be scratching the surface. So I've got three movies in horror films: Four Lions, Sightseers, and Blow Dry. Now, if you've not heard of any of these movies, Four Lions is about a group of terrorists and them attempting to set up a terror plot, and it's hilarious. Sightseers is about a couple who go on a caravan holiday and murder lots of people. It's very funny. And Blow Dry is the late great Alan Rickman plays a hairdresser alongside the late great Natasha Redgrave, who was married to Liam Neeson, and Bill Nighy, and it's a hairdressing competition, and just watch it. It's very good. I'm sort of underselling it here. It's a hairdressing competition, but no, it is very funny. I promise, it's very funny. It does have some superfluous Americans in it who are blatantly only in the movie to try and sell the movie to Americans, but like, it's such a British film. I was like, why even bother? Just try and sell it as a British film. So like, it's a quirky British film because, like, I mean, Josh Hartnett's in it, and do you remember when he was going to be a thing? That was weird. Anyway, the final category, the final category, is movies that are so bad that they're good. Like, guilty pleasures, like movies I know are objectively bad, but I enjoy them anyway. So, number one is The Room. I love The Room. I've watched The Room so many times, both with and without the RiffTrax commentary on it. Like, you don't even need the RiffTrax commentary on it because it's so bad and so weird. But, yeah, The Room by Tommy Wiseau. It's the greatest terrible movie that there ever was. They recently made The Disaster Artist with James Franco and Dave Franco in it, and it was very funny. A little bit disingenuous to what actually happened in real life, but it was very funny. Showgirls. Showgirls, probably like one of my favourite movies of all time. Oh, Paul Verhoeven, you magnificent person. You, like, I don't know what it is about Showgirls that I just love so much. It's such a bad movie, but I love it so much. Like, Jessie from Saved by the Bell. Like, does anyone remember Saved by the Bell apart from me? Like, but Jessie from Saved by the Bell is a stripper in it, and she's naked for most of the movie, so just get your fear of like boobs over and done with, because you're going to see a lot of them if you watch that movie. And then finally, like, this is my ultimate guilty pleasure movie. Like, it's the one that I am a little bit ashamed of loving. Like, I'm not really ashamed of loving Showgirls or The Room. I am ashamed of loving white chicks. I'm so ashamed. Yeah, what can I say? I just love Terry Crews so much that he makes the whole film as something that I enjoy watching a lot. So, that's my top 100 movies of all time. There was probably some extras thrown in there because I just go off on a tangent about movies. But the whole purpose for this video was, like, it was a request from my friend. He wanted to hear me talk about movies for like an hour and talk about like my favourite top 100 movies. So that is what I did, and I needed to test out the new camera, and I needed to test out the new lighting setup. I needed to see how long I could do on the new camera, and so far we've been streaming for 74 minutes and it's not been plugged in. So like with my iPhone, this, like, I could maybe do 20 minutes of live streaming, and then the phone would go, oh no, and run out of battery. So usually if I use this, I have to have it plugged in the whole time, which limits where I can set the camera mount, because it has to be like a certain distance from a plug so that I can like plug it in. But this one has been acting great so far. So like when I end this, I'm going to see like what the battery life is like left, because it was on 100 when I started, and so this was like, it was a fun way for me to experiment and to make a video that my friend really wanted to see, and to test the equipment and just to sort of see what was what, and to ramble on for an hour about movies that I really like. Maybe you might want to watch a couple of the movies that I've mentioned. Most of them you can get on iTunes. There are some you can't. You can't get G.I. Jane on iTunes. Can't get Death Proof on iTunes. You're going to have to look for that somewhere else and probably just get it on DVD. Similarly, you can't get Caravan of Courage on iTunes. Man, that's a DVD purchase. So, you know, maybe I've given you a few films to add to your lists. Maybe you're super duper into like horror movies and that first section was very helpful for you. Let me know. Well, I don't know how you're going to let me know because I can't turn the comments on. Like, every time I manually go in and go turn on comments, it turns it off straight away. So I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Hey ho. Right, thank you very much for watching this. If you've stayed until the end. Leave me a nice thumbsy upsy if you can't leave a comment. Hopefully I'll see you again next time. The next video will definitely be about tarantulas. I promise, I promise, promise, I promise, I promise. Okay, now I filed my ridiculously long nails down, so I'm going to attempt to press the end button, end it button.